Today we're gonna see 14 common mistakes amateur translators make when translating videos from English to Italian. So today I want to bring you this list of common errors I have often seen when analyzing other works of other translators before me, and also some examples. And I will also explain what are the most plausible reasons behind them. Hi, I'm Antonino, I'm an Italian video translator, and I help companies reach their Italian-speaking customers by translating videos from English to Italian. So let's get down to the list of some of the common mistakes improvised subtitlers and translators often make. So I'm going to divide this list in three core different categories: translation and adaptation mistakes, subtitling mistakes, and mistakes that take place specifically when translating content from English to Italian. So let's start with some translation and adaptation mistakes. Word-to-word translations. So the result is that they create a literal translation that lacks the spirit of the original source text or content. So this can lead to some awkward results and may also cause some problems when someone actually tries to use the translated text or video. This often happens due to evident linguistic incompetence, or also due to misuse or overuse of machine translation. And machines, as I said in this video, cannot understand context. They get easily tricked by false friends. That means that they use words or phrases that seem to have a similar meaning to the original when in fact they don't. And this of course leads to wrong translations. In one language, one word may have connotations that it doesn't have in another. When translation is not possible through simple word-for-word translation, professional translators even reword whole sentences to get the job done, not following the manner and style. When translating a content, a translator's job is not only to deliver the meaning of the words, but is also to use the same mood and style in the resulting text or video. By the way, that's why one of the instructions that I encourage my clients to add for their translation projects is the tone of voice and style. But why does that happen? Simply lack of attention or experience, I would say. You wouldn't use contractions or slang in a formal context, and it's the same reason why translators need to choose words and expressions according to the mood of the source text. They do not proofread their work, leading to grammatical errors and typos. While it's easy for us to let pass grammatical errors in speech, errors in texts, such as subtitles, are difficult to overlook. And a company whose content contains grammatical errors looks unprofessional and can turn customers away. The reason behind this is lack of care in first place, but often is due to lack of time. Haste is not friend of accurate translations. That's why I always let my clients know how much time is needed to translate their videos. And if there's a deadline to be met, I offer a faster delivery, not by doing things faster, but by extracting time from my off-duty hours and weekends in exchange for an additional fee. Not checking the video content before actually starting to translate. A professional translator always makes sure to check the context of the translation. It doesn't go blindly translating words or sentences without context. And again, this is due to lack of care or lack of time. I always make sure to check the video content firsthand before actually starting to translate. And as a matter of fact, that's the very first step of my translation process, which is analysis. Let's now move on to subtitling mistakes. Excessively long subtitles. Now that's inevitable when translating from English to Italian. The translated text 99% of the times would be longer than the source text. But sometimes this excessive length is due to word-for-word translation. And this means that sentences that could have been shortened with the action of adaptation and rephrasing are left as they are. And with video subtitles, there can be a problem for the viewer's experience. They mess up synchronization. Subtitles should appear and disappear exactly when the words are spoken. And if they appear for too long or too little time, or also if they do not disappear during pauses or scene changes, this can distract the viewers and not convey their message to them. It's easy to fail synchronizing subtitles to the audio when you don't have enough experience in dealing with videos, or if you don't know the right subtitling rules. That's why following the right subtitling guidelines is important. I personally base my synchronization and subtitling on the Netflix's and BBC's guidelines. Text in subtitles is not split according to logical criteria. Subtitles and lines should be broken at natural points. The ideal line break will be at a piece of punctuation like a full stop, a comma, or a dash, and in general according to the context of the video. You don't want your viewers to miss some crucial points because subtitles kept going on during pauses. Again, this starts to become clear once you study some accurate subtitling guidelines, and it gets even something automatic with experience. Oh, and a little side note is that it also depends on the effect you want to convey. If I'm translating a sales video, it's in my client's interest if I, for example, add a grammatic effect to subtitles by breaking the lines at strategic points. So sometimes you also need to know when to bend the rules. Let's now move on to some mistakes that may happen when translating from English to Italian. Non-necessary translations. Technical and industry-specific texts have a language of their own, and they can be unintelligible unless the person reading them is familiar with that particular topic. Each academic area has its own jargon and abbreviations. Unless the hired translator knows this, it will not be able to translate the text accurately. Now, we all know that English is the language of the internet, and the example I want to show you is about the internet. Some words are meant to be left as they are, and if you try to translate the words web crawling literally, which is the process of indexing data on the web, and you try to translate it in Italian literally as tessitura della rete, which means to weave the net, well, that's just something wrong. By the way, the right translation would be scansione della rete. It was clearly the result of machine translation, but you get the picture of how far from the original meaning it can get. Partial translations with residues of English words. I just talked about what happens if you try to translate some words that shouldn't be translated or should not be translated literally. The opposite thing is leaving too many English words, which can puzzle the viewers and leave them stranded. This is the result of a low level of knowledge of the field and not knowing which terms should be translated and which not. Forgetting that Italian translation will be longer. As I mentioned earlier, when translating from English to Italian, the translating text will be 99% of the times longer than the source text. And when it comes to translating videos, this is even more crucial, because there are time limitations, and sometimes you just can't afford the text to get too wordy. That's a thing that every English to Italian translator needs to keep in mind. Using capitalized words in Italian. In English, it's pretty common to write capitalized words like this when you're writing sales-related and commercial content, right? It's a convention. Now, this rule does not apply to Italian, and unfortunately, I saw many videos with subtitles that brought the same style to Italian subtitles. That definitely looks like something unusual and strange in the eyes of an Italian, and it's also against Italian grammar rules, mistaking the level of formality and confusing the second-person pronouns. Unlike the English language, Italian requires different level of formality, and as a matter of fact, the Italian language can be much more formal. English always uses you even in legal documents, but in Italian you can either use tu, which is informal, or lei, which is formal, or even voi, which is also formal and is mostly used in the southern regions of Italy. That's why understanding the tone of voice and formality is essential, especially in Italian. And a similar concept also applies to second-person pronouns, which in English is always you, but in Italian it depends on whether you're speaking to one person or more people. So it's either tu or voi. But you can solve this problem if you analyze the content and the context properly. Get the gender nouns wrong. Italian has gender nouns, which then influence the adjectives and definite articles that go along with those nouns. This can be tricky at times since English nouns have no gender, and adjectives do not change based on the noun they are describing. But as on the last error of this list, you can get the nouns right if you do the analysis phase right and you study the context. So these were some of the mistakes that I often have seen when analyzing the work of translators before me, and I also have stumbled upon some of them in the past, but as we say in Italy, nessuno nasce imparato, which can be translated as no one is born knowing everything. And as Samuel Beckett once said, ever tried, ever failed, no matter. Try again, fail better. If you reach this point of the video, That's probably because you're having your videos translated in another language, maybe precisely from English to Italian, and you were interested in the possible outcomes that unfortunately could come up. If you're looking for a video translator specialized in translating videos from English to Italian, you may want to know more about my services. So click on the link in the description or on some kind of button to find out more about me and what I can offer. I specialize in translating and subtitling corporate marketing and sales videos. I look forward to seeing you soon.